Hey everybody, winter is coming, which means so are all the posts insisting that Christians stole December 25th and the celebration of Christmas from pagans, which is not supported by the data. The current scholarly consensus holds that Christians had calculated December 25th as the date of Jesus' birth as early as around 210 CE, and this calculation was done using an existing tradition that held that prominent historical figures died on the same day of the year as they were born. We see folks like Hippolytus around this time period suggesting, however, that rather than corresponding to the date of his birth, the date of Jesus' death, which had traditionally been identified as March 25th, corresponded to the date of his conception. And based on a traditional gestational period, 9 months later, we get Jesus being born on December 25th. Now, this does correspond with the traditional observance of the winter solstice within the Roman Empire at this time, and this was not lost on Christians, who would later comment that it only seemed fitting that these significant cosmological events correspond to the birth of the Savior. But we don't have any data that indicate that this inspired the calculation of Jesus' birth on December 25th. Now, the celebration of Sol Invictus on December 25th would not reach Rome until the late 3rd century CE, several decades after the date of Jesus' birth had already been calculated by Christians. Saturnalia was not celebrated on December 25th. It's not a celebration of the winter solstice. It's a harvest celebration, and it took place on December 17th and usually ran for a day or two, but sometimes as long as a full week. So Saturnalia does not actually correspond with the date of Christmas. Now, it did most likely influence the celebration of Christmas and was most likely helpful in Christmas achieving a place of prominence on the Christian calendar. And so it is not unlikely that things like revelry and gift-giving were borrowed from the celebration of Saturnalia. Now, Christmas is celebrated in many different ways in different parts of the world, but there's also a good case to make that within Europe in the Middle Ages and into the early modern period, you had adaptations of pagan celebrations making their way into the celebration of Christmas, in large part because of conversion by large societies, whether by force or otherwise, to Christianity. And so things like bringing wreaths into the home and decorating and hanging them, and activities associated with the concept of Yule, and other things like that likely were borrowings from paganism. But things like the Christmas tree don't show any indication of having been borrowed from paganism. That seems to be a uniquely Christian innovation that took place in the late 15th century within Germany. And so there are lots of ways that paganism has influenced the celebration of Christmas, particularly in societies descended from medieval Europe, but the notion that the holiday and its date were stolen wholesale from pre-existing pagan tradition is just not supported by the data.